Chelsea Football Club is reportedly up for sale, according to reports from the Telegraph. Roman to receive bids for Chelsea this week as pressure mounts on the owner. For a number of days now, it's been thought that Chelsea Football Club could be taken away from Roman, or he could be forced into selling. Now it's been confirmed by a Swiss billionaire that Roman has approached him and three others to buy the football club, and is asking for a sum in the region of £2 billion. Now, there are some problems in terms of selling the football club that many journalists have started to highlight. We spoke about it just last week on the Terrace. At this moment in time, there is no sanctions against Roman. But if a sanction does become in place, it may be impossible. It may be impossible for these billionaires to transact with Roman Abramovich and his element of Chelsea. There's lots to delve onto in this story. I want to take your calls, but it could be that Chelsea Football Club are up for sale and sold this week. Hit that like and share button. Let's do this. This could be one of the most pivotal weeks in Chelsea's history. Roman Abramovich will receive bids to sell Chelsea this week, with at least three parties circling the Stamford Bridge club in the belief that the Russian billionaire for the first time will consider a sale. Offers are being prepared to reach Roman by the end of the week, with the threat of sanctions hanging over the Chelsea owner, who has faced calls to have his assets frozen and seized following Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. And this could be, as stated, a very pivotal and big week in the history of Chelsea Football Club. A club over the last 20 years that has grown from being an also run into one of the world's powerhouse football clubs. 5 Premier League trophies, 2 Champions League, umpteen domestic trophies, Super Cups, Europa Leagues, and currently the World Club champions. This is very, very big news. We spoke about this a lot, that no one really knew exactly what was going to be happening, but it does appear that Chelsea Football Club and Roman are trying to protect the football club. I might still be sanctioned. I might still lose access to this club. And there's a very important passage in Matt Law's piece in the Telegraph today that says, one potential hurdle for the sale of Chelsea would be if Roman is sanctioned before the end of the week, as interested parties would then have to wait for clarity over whether or not they could trade with the 55-year-old or his associates. And this is what's very key. Research financial sanctions. Now, I'm not an expert on them, even though I come across them very regularly in my time in banking. I'm 4 years out of banking. My wording will be slightly off. It's not about the passport you hold. It's about transactions with sanctioned individuals, persons, PEPs as they call them, politically exposed persons, and then also your dealings with particular sanctioned countries and associates. So the system isn't stupid enough to say, well, Roman's name isn't on the deeds, therefore Roman isn't involved. It isn't so much a legal matter as opposed to regulations and sanctions, which are quite wishy-washy, if I'm being honest. And we spoke about this as well. This is what would be my troubling element as a Chelsea fan. There's an insurance policy that everybody celebrated Roman having to protect the football club from having to pay him back his £1.5 billion loan, essentially, that he's given to the club. That insurance company may not be able to pay out. They may not be able to transact it. They may be told by the UK government or the EU, depending on where this insurance company is, you do not pay out on that insurance policy. That, I think, is why it appears Roman is looking to try and maybe sell the club in the space of the next 7 days, ensuring that transactions can happen, because if they take place before the sanction is there, all parties are clear of any wrongdoings. And that's going to be very, very important to anyone who's buying it, because you don't want to break the sanctions and then have things seized from you. Trust me, the UK government would love to seize hundreds of millions or billions of pounds worth of assets, sell them off themselves, and reaping the rewards of the proceeds. This is standard. You've only got to go and look what all the big fines that banks in the UK have had in the last 15 years. Go and check where that money was spent. They didn't give it to charities. They didn't support local communities. It went in their back pockets. So be very mindful of where this money goes to. But it's certainly a precarious time right now for Chelsea Football Club. There's no doubt. It says Chelsea have previously insisted the club is not for sale, but the mood from outside at least is changing. There is a feeling that Abramovich could leave be left with no other option, with his resolve to hang on at the club being tested. There are also claims that Roman is preparing to sell his mansion in Kensington Palace Gardens. And of course, why would he not? It's a £152 million asset. Why would he want the UK government to get their hands on this? And of course, as we mentioned earlier, a Swiss billionaire claims panicking Roman Abramovich has offered to sell him the club. That has now also been confirmed by Matt Law. Matt Law and Sam Wallace, two of the world's leading sports journalists, really pushing hard on this story today, that Chelsea Football Club could be for sale. Now, we're taking your calls today. The link is pinned into the live comment section. If you're watching over on YouTube, on Twitter, the link's in the tweet. Come join us here on YouTube if you want to phone in and you want to have your say. I'm intrigued to know what you're thinking and what you're feeling in relation to this. But there's so many moving parts. You know, as we know, Roman's been out there trying to help broker some peace deals. We know that he handed over, we spoke about this yesterday on the Terrace, he'd handed over the sort of running of the club to the trustees, which I was told by somebody at Chelsea is how the club's been run for a while anyway, which is why there was then this backlash from a few board members saying, this feels a little bit of a fugazi here. We're not really in control. Do I really want to be here? Is this right? What powers do I have, as an example? It does appear things are coming to a head now. It does appear that the future of Chelsea Football Club, I'm not saying the club's in the future is in the balance, and I'm not trying to be overly hyperbolic. Chelsea was here before Roman. It will be here after Roman. It just depends on who's running it, what board he puts in place, how they operate. We've seen many, many billionaire owners make clubs better. We've seen many, many billionaire owners destroy football clubs. It is a nervous time for Chelsea fans, and I completely and utterly understand that. And it should be. Some will be completely confident it'll be fine. Others, not so much. But I want to get your take. I want your thoughts and feelings, which are more important on this subject matter than mine. I'm going to go to some of your comments coming through here. If this forced sale happens, I see thousands of angry Chelsea fans joining Ukraine in the war. Listen, I think that's an outlandish statement. I don't think any football fans are going to go and put their lives on the line over the sale of their football club. That's my honest opinion. I don't think war is to be trifled with. I don't think war is to be trivialized at all, especially if it's coming from people. And I don't know your background, sir, so I'll say this with an air of ignorance to it, but especially if you've ever been involved in war. I think it's a very silly thing to say. There is no chance in hell he would just give up like that. There's legal litigation that would tie it in court for years to resolve the matter. Listen, all I'm going to say is this. Matt Law is exceedingly credible. Sam Wallace, exceedingly credible. These billionaires are making these claims. They're not clout chasing, Jamel. Like, they're not clout chasing. Why does a billionaire, why does a billionaire have to clout chase? He isn't a YouTuber who's trying to gain some traction. He isn't a Z-list celebrity who's trying to make himself popular on a talk show. This is a man who is worth around 5 to 7 billion pounds. Why is he lying? Like that would be my point to you. Read the room here. I think there's an element of truth in this. And yes, it might get tied up in court for years, but in that period, it could be more damaging for Chelsea. Roman, I believe, irrespective of what you think about him, I don't know Roman, I'm not judging his character, but irrespective of what anybody thinks about him, I do think he loves Chelsea Football Club. Sosa here says, no Americans can buy Chelsea. They will be funding a Russian man that is close to Putin, so Chelsea need to chill. Joe Biden already said no business with Russia. So yeah, again, I didn't know about that. If that's true, then thank you for enlightening us, my friend. Not going to lie, I wish Chelsea was owned by a Russian oligarch. Would be rid of the rabble in there now, is what Pedro says. I laughed when rivals started laughing at Roman Abramovich's situation because Roman is going to sell to who he trusts. And I think that's also very fair. Roman is going to do his absolute best to sell to people that he trusts, that he believes are going to take the club forward in the right direction. There's no doubt about that at all. He will try to do that. One of our members here says says Chelsea could be bought by a Glazer type ownership who aren't focused on winning primarily. And there is always a chance that they could get a bad owner. Of course there is. I don't understand Arab owners are also doing labor abuse, freedom of speech issues, but no one talks about. But listen, that has definitely been spoken about. To say that the ownership of Newcastle United wasn't contested, to say that the ownership of Newcastle United hasn't been condemned by many, many people is different. I'm not going to get into a political or neo-political conversation because my expertise on that are almost zero. My knowledge of that is sparse, to say the least. But I understand the frustration that people have with what is, the hypocrisy people see between the way this conflict is being dealt with from a media standpoint and sanctions compared to other regions of the world. Well, what I would say is this, though. I think similar would happen if Saudi Arabia, and I'm not suggesting they're doing nothing wrong, so please don't take this way. But if this circumstance was going on with a nation, and there was owners connected to it, I think we'd see the same type of behavior. But until we get examples of it, it's hard to say. But I do understand where people are frustrated. I do understand how, I do understand this. Every 5 minutes, there's a political issue that football wants to address, and sometimes football has the take of it's keep politics out of sport. The next minute, politics is in sport, and everybody kind of chops and changes their views and their opinions on these things. And so I do understand the frustration. I really, really do. It's one of the reasons I love watching the UFC. Something that Dana White says, which I like, is that if a fighter wants to talk politics, he'll let them. But the UFC as a business won't do it. I quite like that. Just because generally when I watch the UFC, I can just enjoy fighting and the political stuff doesn't come up. It's a really good escapism. So I'm somebody that doesn't enjoy politics in sport to a certain degree because it's my escapism. But I also completely and utterly understand the power sport has, the impact sport can have, and why many, many people feel that it's important to do it. So I respect that. And that's the thing. I'm just not polarized as a person. I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram because I just want to see sport. That would be very unfair and not very understanding of me. But there we go. To try and answer your questions as honestly as possible. End of an era for Chelsea. It's not going to be the same with new owners who just want to profit before winning trophies, is what C believes. And you know what, C, look, there's no guarantees that is going to be the case. There's no guarantees that that's going to happen. You may still very well have owners that want to, that behave like Roman, that behave like Sheikh Mansour, that run the club as well as clubs like Brighton, clubs like Southampton. And I'm using all the different examples of teams that are run well. You may change ownership. You had the horrendous situation at Leicester, which is, of course, different. But the owner passes away in a tragic accident. His family pick up the pieces and they continue the journey. So I'm sure that Roman is going to do everything in his power if he sells to make Chelsea continue in a positive way. Do you think this will deter foreign ownership of clubs in the future? No, I don't think it will. I don't think it will. But you never know what happens in the future, do you? I remember only a few weeks ago, people saying this conflict wouldn't even happen. Again, I don't really listen to what the average man and woman has to say about these situations because we're all morons on the subject. I wouldn't take advice from a milkman of how to do the electrics in my house. I'm going to listen to an electrician with respect to milkman. But I would listen to a milkman about the do's and don'ts with milk. It's the way it is. As a rival fan, it will be great if the American owners buy Chelsea. They will know how much pain Arsenal and United fans have gone through, is what man like Shah has got to say here. Pav says, I thought transactions were banned with Russian businessmen. So how is Roman going to get his money? Well, at the moment, there isn't a Roman isn't under those sanctions right now, as far as I'm aware, and that's only based on what I have read. Roman isn't facing those sanctions. Roman isn't under any of this kind of pressure, as an example. So, yeah, as far as I'm aware right now, there's no issue with doing the transaction with Roman. However, that could change. That legitimately could change at any point and at any moment, which is why I think these transactions are being put through. We're going to go to your calls in just a few moments. Do me a big favor and smash that like button, please. Very important you do that for us this morning. Barely any of them done right now. So hit that like button to support the Terrace. You may not like the story that's being spoken about, which tends to be the case with fans, viewers at the Terrace. They tend to hit the like button more for a story they like, as opposed to whether or not they are enjoying the actual content being made. But, I didn't make this news up today. Just a reminder for anyone who's new tuning in, the Daily Telegraph claimed that Roman Abramovich is to receive bids for Chelsea this week as pressure mounts on the owner. It is said that up to at least 3 parties are circling Stamford Bridge, and there is now a belief that for the first time, Roman will consider a sale. Offers are being prepared to reach Roman by the end of the week, with the threat of sanctions hanging over the Russian owner of Chelsea, who has faced calls for his assets to be frozen and seized. This is the story as it stands right now. It says Chelsea have previously insisted the club isn't for sale, but reportedly the mood has changed. And on top of that, a Swiss billionaire has claimed that panicking Roman Abramovich has offered to sell him Chelsea along with 2 other billionaires. I want your take. I want your views. I want your opinions. I want to know what you think and you feel about this. First caller of the day is going to be CFC Matty. Of course, CFC Matty, Chelsea fan. What you saying, buddy?
How you doing, Terry? Are you okay?
I'm very well. What's your take on this news, my friend?
I'm relaxed. I mean, I've been a Chelsea fan since 1998. I was a fan when Ken Bates was running the show, when he was running them to the ground. I remember us winning the European Super Cup that year, and that was my first season as a Chelsea fan. And then we brought in Roman Abramovich in 2003, and then he started running the club and he started spending. Let's be honest with each other, right? Let's be honest as a fan base. Roman will do things that is good for the club. He won't do it to benefit himself or his own pocket. He will bring in people who will, or at least an owner who will do what's best for the club. Or he'll bring in somebody who has the same ruthless tendencies as he's got. I mean, personally, I think, either way, if he stays, we're winning. If we have to go for somebody else, we're still going to win, because he's going to give it to somebody who he knows will have passion and winning mentality to the club, and he'll want to take on those responsibilities. And don't forget, his kids are Chelsea fans. He's a Chelsea fan. He will want to have that competitive sort of mentality running through the club. This isn't Kroenke or the Glazers, who will sell to pretty much anybody, or Mike Ashley, for example. He wants to do what's best for the club. And and to be fair, if he decides to go, big salute to him, and hopefully he'll, I wish him all the best. But if not, I'm happy that, he sticks around. We can't get too political with things like this. I think it's, not that I'm the same as you. We can't go on news stories all the time. We have to think football and sport. And yes, it is sad what's going on around Ukraine at the moment. But as it's a topic about football, we have to think with our sporting heads, really, and our sporting hearts, and so.
Yeah, and look, I think it's very sensible from a Chelsea standpoint for fans to think about their club here without getting. We had a comment earlier where someone's like, "Oh, I think Chelsea fans are going to go and join the war to get back at Putin over this." I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's stupid. It's not what this is about. Roman may be forced into selling, but it's about focusing on what will happen around the club. And we're here to talk sports. So I absolutely agree with you on that. And it's good to hear the calmness there. And look, I agree with you in large parts. I think Roman will do his absolute best to find the best possible owners that will help to continue to grow the club forward. And I think what fans have got to remember is, right now, if you're a Chelsea fan, you should be thanking your lucky stars that FFP came in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this is, people always felt that FFP was partly bought in to keep football competitive. It was to keep the Liverpools and the Barcelonas and the Bayern Munichs and the Man Uniteds able to compete with Chelsea's, PSGs, and Cities. However, what it was also brought in for is to ensure that if at any point those billionaire owners, who when Roman first came in was pumping in hundreds of millions of pounds a year, the idea was that you would be able to survive if they leave. And you have become a self-sustainable club. The majority of your income is generated through the club's business and commercial activities, as opposed to relying on Roman's money. So,
well, not just that, Terry. We've also been run perfectly well, even when Abramovich isn't around. We've actually had some fantastic, we've got Bruce Buck, who's chairman. We've got Marina Granovskaya, who's running the show. And, all they go to is Roman Abramovich anyway for approval. And at the end of the day, the day-to-day running of the club has been going on for the last, I don't know, since he didn't get his passport or his work permit renewed. So if you think about it, we've been like this for quite some time. And Roman Abramovich was there at the Club World Championship game, and he was there for the European Super Cup and the Champions League game. But apart from that, he's not been in his office at Stamford Bridge for a long time, and we've got a very consecutive good club, sustainable club anyway.
Very, very, very true. Matty, great call, my friend, and we'll speak to you again. Top man. Thank you. Chelsea fans, we want to hear from you, rivals as well. The zombie fanatic here says, Terry, do you think clubs having British owners is better than having foreign owners, like West Ham, for example? No, I don't think it matters the passport, where your owner's passport is from, where their heritage is from, the religion they follow, the sexual orientation that they have, the gender that they are or identify with. That is all just inconsequential. There are good owners and there are bad owners of all denominations. I'm very weird on the whole denominations thing. It's just something I never think about. I like to know where someone's from, but I couldn't care less. I'm sure there are owners that have run football clubs that are from. Sometimes it's cultural though, as in the way I feel like a lot of the American owners have done things at the highest level in England. They kind of try and run it like a franchise in America, which I think is very different to the way football clubs are here. In America, it isn't shocking for a baseball team or a hockey team or a football team to move 4,000 miles to another part of the country. That ain't part of our. So sometimes there's a culture clash on things. But look, there's been great owners from the Middle East. There's been great, like Roman has been a great owner for Chelsea. So yeah, for me personally, I think it matters not. Next on the show with us today is going to be man like Winter. So I just DM Winter Surfer and he was already there. I didn't know. Winter Surfer is here with me. What are you saying, mate?
Hi. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I agree in normal circumstances, he will look for the best owner, but this isn't normal circumstances. And I think he will try his best, but he's on a time frame because I think they're going to try and sanction him, but I don't know when they're going to actually try and do it. So my thought would be he will always look for the best of the club, but this is extraordinary circumstances, and he's also going to have to put his family first as well before Chelsea, their security as well, their future. So while I agree, under normal circumstances, he will always look for the best, and I know he'll try now, but he's on a time frame and he doesn't even know what the time frame is. If you figure it out, he doesn't even know what it is.
And I agree with you on that as well. That the financial sanctions are they're crazy. I touched on them partly in my job, but I only touched on them from the front end side of things. Or we would ask the questions and pump the information in, and like it can get very murky. And depending on the direction this conflict goes in, could change things. If in a week's time, and I'm hypothetical here, it's all over, might be able to relax. If it keeps getting worse and worse, if something's done in the next few days, which is just seen as absolutely abhorrent by the whole world, it changes things further. And there could be sanctions that then go on for decades. So it is hard to know. And I think the one thing I would say is what you got to hope for is it's who the new owners get to run the club for them. Because remember, none of these Sheikh Mansour don't run Man United, run Man City. He employs people too, and it's all about having the right people at board level. I think that's almost more important in some regards than the ownership, if you get where I'm coming from.
It also matters that these people may have the funds to buy the club. What do they have after that? that's what you said about the structure and everything, who they
Mm.
put in, what the financial situation is, what money they can put in, what deals have they got set up. I'm very wary of a consortium that has multiple, sorry, a buying party that has multiple investors. That means there's so many chefs in one kitchen, and you could have conflict and everything like that. I'm very wary. Like this Swiss billionaire, the news broke out that, you know, he's got 3.8 billion, but he still says he hasn't got enough to buy it. You know what Roman wants, he's going to have 6 or 7 in, or 3 or 4 investors in, or something like that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing with a lot of the billionaires. It's almost a lot of their. It's very rarely cash. They're very rarely have they got 7 billion, 8 billion pound of cash. It's a lot of it is properties and investments and stocks and shares, and sometimes it's also what they. It's like Daniel Icke that owns or founder of Spotify. If he sold everything he has in Spotify, we'd have enough money to buy Arsenal, but he's not going to do that to buy Arsenal. Why would you? Because Spotify is going to make him so much more money than Arsenal ever will. He's actually, like, cash-wise, he has nowhere near enough to buy the club. Yeah, you're right.
Doesn't the rest of the Premier League teams have to approve it as well?
Yes, as well. This is also part of it. So
you got like, and let's face it, Terry, I'm sorry, even in these times, there'll be politics in that decision as well, especially if the potential new owner is, and because remember, Roman's very rich. I don't know the exact estimate that he's worth, but he's not the richest anymore. But what if the owner comes in and suddenly he dwarfs even Roman's, you know, what he earns. He's getting up to the Man City's. He won't get up to the Newcastle one because that's extraordinary. But what if he gets up to the Man City one or above Man City? Then you're going to have politics inside there saying, you know, we don't want Chelsea to go up again. Do you know what I mean? It's gonna be stuff like that. So,
mate, I hear you completely. It's you know, this could be a clean sale. This could also be, you know, problematic as well. I think you make some great points there. And Andrew, top man for coming on and having your say, mate. And we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Lamin on the show. Fatur coming on the show as well. Comment here says Chelsea FC is going to turn to Cobham Cobras 2022 NBA champions when Americans buy the club, is what C thinks is going to happen here. Lamin's joining me now to have his say this morning. Another big Chelsea fan. What's your thoughts and feelings on all of this, mate?
Yeah, sorry. I was just confused, upset at everything that's been going on. With regards to Roman, yeah, the thing that really gets to me is that I don't think we get another owner on the same level, that someone that actually truly cares. To me, it's not about someone having the most money, because we know that the Kroenke's got more money than Roman. But Roman actually cared about Chelsea. He's someone that is like a Chelsea fan, and the fans love him, and he wants to see the best for the club. So when it comes to owner-wise, I don't think there's any single club in the Premier League that wouldn't take Roman as their owner right now, like for someone that truly cares. So that's just how I feel about that. And for new owners, I'm very, very, like, I don't know, on the edge about it. Like, I don't know how they're going to treat the club. We've seen American ownership, like, they're just there for the money, and then basically just sucking the club dry, really. And I don't want that. I just want someone that truly cares on the same level as Roman. But I don't know. I don't think we'll get that. On the other side of things, that really made me upset is just seeing all of the hypocrisy going on. Like, you can't tell me there's a single billionaire out there that don't really have, that's not really corrupt. Like, the Premier League is full of billionaires, and what you're doing now, you're opening like a whole can of worms now. What happens for the next owner or the next country that gets invaded, and the next owner is basically implicit in that? I'm just seeing a whole lot of hypocrisy in the news going on, and Bravo fans coming for Chelsea, but it could be your owner next that could be involved in this. And I would say the City fans and the Newcastle fans, like, be very, very careful, because the next time something like this happens, your owner could be involved, and they wouldn't hesitate to sell. And on the Ukraine thing, if I really say how I feel, I'll probably get banned, because the hypocrisy that I'm seeing, yeah, is actually making me upset, like, of just everything that I'm seeing. And I'm like, I'm at the point, I know it's the football, so I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, the hypocrisy is mad.
On the hypocrisy, listen, I see it and feel it in exactly the same way. It's some of the news reports I've seen. It is horrendous
Yeah,
what's going on. But I've seen news reporters say it's not like it's Syria, or it's not like it's here, or it's not like it's there. This is Europe, and I'm kind of
yeah,
like, can these people even hear themselves? Like, it's absolutely horrendous. The as you say, the hypocrisy in this. And I always say this about having bad owners, and I'll use that same thought process in this. Don't laugh too hard, especially if you've got a foreign billionaire owning your football club, because who knows what direction the world's going to go in next, and it could be you. That's why for me, I'm not suggesting that my club's in that situation at this point, but I'm not going to throw glass stones. I'm not going to banter it. I'm not going to laugh about it, because I also don't think it's a subject matter worth laughing about when you look at why we're here, why this is happening. So I hear you, Lamin. I really, really do, brother. Thanks for coming on and having your say, my friend.
yeah. Don't worry, Sitor. Have a good day, man.
Top man. Thank you. Super chat here says, do you think Chelsea fans should be worried for the club? I would still, I agree with Matty to begin with. I say stay calm right now, and stay as relaxed as possible. But there is, of course, the possibility this could go south for Chelsea. To act like it couldn't, to act like it won't, to act like 100% it's all going to be fine. I don't think any Chelsea fan would be 100% telling the truth. I don't think any Chelsea fan is being completely honest with themselves, because when anything you do in life, you can buy a new house and think, oh, you're looking forward to it. Yeah, but the mortgage is higher. There's a little bit of pressure. You get into a relationship. Oh, what if I get hurt? Buy a new car. What if I lose my job though and I can't afford it? Anything you do in life, from trivial day-to-day normal things right through to your football club being sold to somebody new, the unknown always has an element of fear to it. There's always an element of fear. But what I would say is this: what if they get even better owners? I'm just shouting it out there. What if the new person's even better than Roman? Chelsea fans might look at this in 4 or 5 years and go, best thing that happened to us. It can go either way. There's no doubt. Newcastle owners are literally committing genocide in Yemen. Listen, as I've said, I completely understand and completely get the hypocrisy within this. And someone said to me the other day, well, why were British owners allowed to still own their clubs when they invaded a country and there was no sanctions? Yeah, essentially, the sanctions are controlled by the people that control. These sanctions are only kind of relevant in the West, if that makes sense. So the West is not going to sanction itself. The West is never going to do something that damages their interest. Remember that. It's all about their best interest. I've always looked at the way countries are run. I don't trust any government. I'm getting too political here. Whenever they talk about humanity and caring about people, I always kind of ignore it. I think countries have always been run this way, or they've definitely been run this way in my lifetime. They run like businesses. They run with how do we make the most amount of money possible? That's it. And I'm not suggesting that's fair or right or moral or integral. It's just the way I think it is. So I get the hypocrisy, but you know why they're not going to sanction certain countries and they will do others. We know why. And it's always been the same, and it always will be. I'm going to bring a number of callers out together, because we've got man like Daz waiting, we've got Fatul waiting, we've got Matty waiting, and to do it one by one is going to take an eternity. So I'm going to bring all these boys out together. Make sure you're smashing that like button for us, please. If you want to phone in, come and have your say. Let's get these gents out to have their say on this big talking point today. Welcome to the show, gents. Not the best of circumstances to sort of be here from a Chelsea standpoint. What are you saying, Daz? What was your head at with all of this today?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Obviously, this has been loading up for some days now, since the whole sort of Russia-Ukraine thing has gone down. I think a couple of days ago, people sort of, from when he did the stewardship thing, to giving it to the trustees, everybody was sort of going, it's nothing, doesn't mean anything, calm down, like nothing's happening. At that point, I sort of, I believed what everybody else was saying, but I did sort of think it's definitely a move he's done here tactically to avoid something. Now we're seeing, obviously, the conflict is sort of building up, and now we're seeing reports of he's receiving bids. Now, if it's the case that he's receiving bids, I think it's very likely, obviously, he's looking to sell. He wants to get the value for the club. Now, what this means for Chelsea, it's, I'm not going to panic. However, it's definitely a period of uncertainty. I think it's going to, like you said earlier, it could end up being we sell the club and then it's better for the club, potentially. Or it could be a complete, we know how owners are in football now. It could be the opposite. It could be a complete big mess, and it could go either way. So it's just a time of uncertainty for Chelsea fans, I think, right now.
Yeah, how about yourself, Fator? Obviously, you're a regular goer. You're at the ground. You're around the fans all the time. Like, what's your take on all of this? Are you worried about the end of the Roman era, or relaxed like Matty was on the call earlier?
Pretty much like we prepare for the good, we prepare for the worst. I think from most of us' point of view, it's just like we just want to, go to games basically, and just to see performance week in, week out. And I think what's going on behind the scenes, the ownership, and that, I think it's way above our pay grade. I think from us perspective that we can do is like thanking what he's been done for the past nearly decade now. So what Roman's done been for not only for the decade but 20 years actually since he take over has been magnificent, and we can't literally like thank him more than that. But I think we're just gonna have to prepare mentally for the worst and for the good. And I saw the news a couple of days ago, the MP in there. I feel like the third party in that Cobham camp just knew that Roman's going to be involved in this kind of mess, and unfortunately so. And it's not good. It's not coming in a good time. But like Darren said earlier, maybe I just think we just kind of prepare, and then we'll just see in the next couple of years. And you never know with these new owners, man. Like,
yeah, I hear you. And how about yourself, Matty? Relaxed, frustrated, and I mean, a lot of people in the comments are saying this is a witch hunt. This isn't fair on Chelsea. Where do you stand on this, brother?
No, it's not fair, Terry, and I'm a bit upset because I'm a man who absolutely loves Roman. I love what he's done for the club, and I think it's absolutely embarrassing because it's hypocrisy. And like that guy, the other caller who said he didn't want to say it because he'll get banned. Well, I'm not going to see and not say. I'm going to say it that we've got people like in Israel who are doing the exact same thing to Palestine that Russia's doing in Ukraine, but none of their politics or their football players are getting sanctioned. So I think there's some hypocrisy going towards Roman here, maybe because he's from Russia and Russia's a massive, massive country, but maybe because he's white. There's something that's going on there because it is definitely hypocrisy here because I don't think he should be sanctioned. If people say, let's not bring politics into football, well, it's not. And then 20 minutes later, they start bringing politics into football. So every week it's changing. Every day for Chelsea, it's changing. And as I said this morning on other channels. I said I'm quite confused what's going on because we heard the other day that the stewards, this random team is taking over, and now next day we're hearing that he's selling the club, and I don't want him to leave. I think he's an amazing owner. I think he's treated Chelsea like he's treated a child. He's grown up the club. He's made the club success. And yes, we can go get someone else who may be better, but I don't want someone better. I want Roman. I think Roman's he's loyal to the fans. He's loyal to the club. And I said he's brought up like a child, and I wouldn't just throw a child away. I would want to keep that child. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. If he leaves, it's going to be disappointing. But at the end of the day, I definitely want him to stay.
Yeah, I get you wanting him to stay, mate, and I think it has got to be frustrating, as you say, for Chelsea fans who will feel like they're just almost kind of collateral damage to everything that's going on. And of course, it's a hard thing to also be annoyed about because there are much worse things going on right now than a football club having to change ownership in relation to that. But of course, it's part of people's day-to-day life and their culture and something they enjoy, and they want to see it in good hands. So I also understand the frustration. It's trivial to the frustrations and fears right now of people living in certain parts of the world. I totally understand that, but it's still a big and important thing. Casey here says takeovers usually are tricky. Milan had bad new owners, and why will Roman let go of 2 billion? Roman stole his money from Russian workers like all oligarchs. Again, I'm not going to comment on that because I don't really understand the structure of things. I mean, most people say capitalists steal their money off their workers and whatever else. It's in fairness, wherever there's rich people, there are angry people that don't like it. But like, I used to I'm a fan of Amazon. But in the last few years, the amount of things I see written and said about like Bezos and the way like Amazon treat people, I'm like, they make out like he's running concentration camps. And I mean, like the way it's worded sometimes, I'm like, is it that bad? And I've got friends that have worked there and they're like, it's not as bad as that report says, but it's like any workplace. And so, yeah, look, I get people have that standpoint. And I see a lot of people say this about billionaire owners. Are any of them clean? As in, accusations of from overworking staff right through to like what nations they fund or literally the nations they run are doing. There's always an air of a bone of contention, and then it will always depend on your politics. So there'll be some people that will. I remember when people were angry with Roman, and I'm only speculating here as in what I read, that he was funding elements of Israel. There were some people that find that disgraceful because he's supporting what Israel endeavors are, as an example. Now, in this circumstance, they're kind of supporting him because their politics have changed again. And for me, that's why I tend to I want to just watch football. I want to just watch the UFC. I want to just watch the sport. But I do understand the hypocrisy. If you're going to allow politics in for one subject, you have to let it in for everything, surely, Daz.
Yeah, no, literally looking at it, and I can see obviously everybody has sort of differing views. For me, I like to, like you said, I like to sort of try and be neutral because from both sides, it's going to always be a different story. Like you just said, somebody might cry or moan about voice their opinions about, let's say, the Israel-Palestine, but like you just said about Roman and his potential involvement in that, you would look at that and then maybe you don't like Roman. Then you look at this issue and because it's now affecting your club or you don't see whatever, now it doesn't affect your issue. I think in terms of, like I said, we don't want to make it politics. You just want to keep it football. But obviously, when it's like this, at the end of the day, I think in general, us in peaceful areas in the world, you just don't want to see conflict. You don't want to see war. So really, you want to see somebody come out and come against, war. But, right now, if I'm trying to stick it more to Chelsea and what it's the implications for the club. Now, I've heard, this is all speculation, it's not actual, I don't have evidence for you, but in terms of how things have played out so far, we've seen, I think, the Everton owner, who is a Russian oligarch, I believe, he's had his assets seized, yet Roman hasn't yet. Obviously, the sanctions have already taken place, I believe, and it's affecting Russia. We're seeing Roman already sell some of his property in England, and I've been told, apparently, he's gone out to send a letter to Boris Johnson, and he's voiced out that, hey, if you try and sanction me, I'll just sell this club for £1, and then you lot will end up owing me money. So the funny thing about this politics thing, I'm not saying that's the truth, but really, if that did play out, when you look at it, and I've always said this, hence why I wasn't sure if Roman's going to sell, and to be fair, we don't know, it's just reports.
Yeah, of course.
If it's the case that the Western world or UK want to sanction him, if that was to hurt Chelsea, how does that then hurt the Premier League? And then how does that then hurt, England itself? We saw how during COVID, how these lot were dying to let the football run, regardless of everything.
And mate,
so
money, you're right.
Money
Money is going to be a big factor in this. And this whole argument, I'm seeing people say Terry is misinformation. Roman is a Israeli citizen. And listen, I'm not making any accusations. I'm saying what I see people say. The country is as in England, is gonna do what it feels is best for itself financially. So Roman, it could be if we seize Roman stuff and then Roman does X, we might make some money in the short term, but it might cost us more in the long term. They will make the best financial decision. That's why I say, like, when it comes to countries and the way they're run, finances matter. You could have two countries like hate each other for 100 years. They can suddenly make loads of money together. Watch them shake hands and put a treaty in place and do whatever at government level. Forget the people. Like, I really believe this. I don't believe very many governments give a damn about their people. Anywhere in the world, like, I just don't. I just don't. I mean, when you see, like, anyway, I'm not going to get into it. Like, it's not really my thing to talk about publicly because again, someone will hear it and go, you talk about my favorite people. I look at it this way. Like, some people will hate the owners of West Ham because they vote Conservative and they look at what the Conservative do and they see it as evil. And there'll be others that will be like, no, actually, but listen, that's why I like the UFC, because it's an apolitical organization, if that makes sense. They just but they allow the fighters to say what they want. And I'm like, that's beautiful, because the fighters can come out and wear a flag or a badge or take a knee and it's acceptable. And the whole organization's just, it's nice like that. They got it right, actually. The crazy thing is, without forcing people into to wearing like, they're not trying to force people to wear poppies. They're not trying to make everyone take a knee. They're not trying to say we've got to do this and then ignoring other subject matters completely and infuriating people. They're just saying, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't, don't. And there's like harmony. And I feel like that's the issue that gets to fans here. Like, I'm all for the players taking a knee. I'm also all for people that don't want to wear a poppy, not wearing a poppy, because that's what them men died for, freedom. And that freedom should allow you to, I do want to do this and I don't want to do that. And you should have the freedom to be able to do it. And that's the irony in all of this, is that it's all meant to be about freedom and it never is. Roman is a close friend of Putin. Football is secondary. It is morally right to sell and give the money to the Ukraine. Feel sad for them, not about this club. Now, again, we actually, if this government took that £152 million asset, the government said they're going to give the money to the Ukraine.
I don't think they've ever said that.
I don't see him doing that, bro. That's my point. When like when all the banks got, it ain't even political. When all the banks got fined, that money didn't go to food banks. That money didn't go to the poor. That money built the FCA new offices in Canary Wharf. Like, it was, oh yeah, we got the banks. You didn't get the banks. Other rich people just took money off the banks based on your anger. They didn't, do you know what I mean? They didn't pump it into the school systems. They didn't build new doctor surgeries, new schools, new hospitals. They didn't help. They didn't go to foreign aid. It built new offices with marble floors. Come on now. Wise up. Baz is here with us now. What are you saying, Bazza?
Hey, man. Yeah, it's crazy stuff in the world. And obviously, not trying to get political here, just that people are getting displaced and a lot of crazy stuff happening, obviously. So always have my heart out to people that are dealing with that. Now, I'm just thinking of this from Roman's point of view here. I don't know why he didn't start this process like over a month ago. And probably when they stopped, the writing was on the wall when they didn't renew his visas. So he probably should have had this in the back of his mind that something like this could happen in the future. But that being said, I think that he's going to be happy with getting whatever he can out of this, because one thing I'm going to say is that the whole idea of selling it for $1 and having the UK government owe you, we all know that's never going to happen, right? The UK government will never pay him if he sold it for $1, and he wouldn't do that because it's just, there would be no way to get the money back, right? So I just think he's going to try to sell it to whoever can pay the most as quickly as possible, and that just sort of brings an interesting array of suitors of who's going to want to buy this club and what their intentions are going to be. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
But Bazza, could I quickly say in regard to the pound thing? Obviously, that was like not the exact, but I think the notion behind it was he was sort of using it to threaten back to Boris to then say, if I was to mess up Chelsea, because he has the power to, he owns Chelsea. If I was to completely mess up Chelsea, who are like the majority of Chelsea fans? Who do they vote for? They generally vote for Conservative. You piss off all those fans, they're not voting for you anymore. And then you could potentially sway the whole thing. So it's not necessarily money-wise, because at the end of the day, they're going to sanction him. He's going to lose that money. This whole conflict, I don't even know if it's for the benefit. It's not the benefit of the oligarchs. So at the end of the day, it's still sort of something to use on the government. Yeah, of course, they're not going to pay him directly. Somebody else will. But the whole point is he has the power to still affect Chelsea. And I think that's where the balance is. And at the moment, they're giving him the time to sell it. Really, it doesn't make sense to give somebody who we're trying to sanction $2 billion, does it? But he's going to get it from the looks of it, because like we can't do anything to him. He owns the club. Unless you affect Chelsea, you can't affect him.
Yeah,
So
and the thing is, and they've got to be very careful with damaging Chelsea, because there's also knock-on effects here. There are lots of innocent people connected to Chelsea. There's all the workers, there's all the staff, there's all the businesses that surround the football club that rely on it. They need to be mindful. There's a very different thing from taking someone's £100 million property and taking a football club, which again, we have to remember this, although it's owned by a billionaire, is built by the working classes initially, and it's absolutely pivotal to the local economy surrounding it. And that's something, and also from a standpoint locally, that needs to be focused on here. That's important. That may not necessarily matter to a Chelsea fan in America or a Chelsea fan in South Africa, but to the local community. You might own a pub there, you're not even a Chelsea fan, but you still rely on Chelsea Football Club. You know, I had a friend that owned a pub by the old West Ham ground. He didn't even like football, he just owned pubs. And when they decided to move to the London Stadium, it was going to kill him. In the end, they came to a deal with Newham, and Newham helped them convert the whole upstairs into like a hotel, and they're doing all right now. But that's what needs to happen. The government's also got to think about those knock-on effects, you know. And if you do damage the club, if it goes into turmoil, if less people go, like, I don't know what can happen. And none of these things ever happen instantly. There's always a knock-on effect. Baz, great call, my friend. Thanks for coming on and having your say. Appreciate it, brother, and all your support. Thank you. Next up, we're going to get True Red on the show. He's a Man United fan. What are you saying, Russ? Okay, Russell's not there. We're going to get Isha on the show. Sorry, Elisha on the show. What are you saying? He's not there either. It's 2 on the bounce. Maybe it's
Third time lucky. Come on, Terry.
I really don't get the Roman hate. It's not as if our countries don't have blood on their hands either. It's all political, Terry. This is not democracy. Look, as I say, it's I don't know. Yeah,
So shouldn't.
I agree.
Sorry,
go on, mate.
I was gonna say shouldn't. That's why we shouldn't be putting politics with football. Like as you said, I think the UFC was a great example. And I was surprised I never used that one because exactly they keep majority of politics out of it. Exactly, they say what they want to say. They don't have to. They don't. It's all free. And if we didn't, use politics in football, would we have this situation here? Like, there's so many different outcomes that could happen with this. And I think possibly from this we can learn that we don't need to mash politics with football. I don't think it would ever end because obviously we've dug the hole too deep. But just imagine a life without politics and football, and I don't think this will ever happen. And as in this comment says, it's all politics, Terry. This is not democracy.
Listen, we had a footballer for the last year that's been feeding hungry children, and people have hated it because it's been too political. So if we get angry at that element of politics being in football, of course this stuff's going to be even worse from an emotive point of view because this is a very emotive subject for people. There's no doubt. Casey says, Terry, if SWIFT sanctions came in, can Roman get his money back with Kiev under siege?
What is SWIFT sanction though? I have no idea that's a banking term, so I'm not really fond of it.
Yeah, so SWIFT is a way, essentially, how you transfer money internationally. You get your SWIFT bit code, which we all have on your bank account. You've all got one. So yes, but there are more. There are sanctions, but then there are exemptions to those rules. So, if, for instance, the UK government, it depends. Again, it all depends where Roman's bank accounts are, what country they're in, and then getting permission. And also, when it comes to SWIFT payments, his accounts might be in Israel. But to get money from the UK to America, because it might be an American owner that buys it, to Israel, it might need to go through 3 different banks. All you would then need to do is get permission from those banks, their authorities and governments for this singular transaction to go through. These things can sometimes happen. A very different scenario. The bank I worked in East London, we had a phone call one day. We had to shut the branch off. Roads got shut down. This is back in 2008. In 2008, there was when ships were getting taken over by pirates, right? Somebody decided to pay a ransom, all in cash. And my branch I worked in was one of the last remaining banks in the UK that had a drive-in port for the vans to come and deliver and take money out. So they drove all the money in and they counted it in our counting house and then packaged it and took it all out again the other way. Now, theoretically, the bank that I worked for was helping to process money that was being paid to terrorists. That's sanction. You can't do that. However, the bank was given permission by the relative bodies to be able to kind of complete that transaction. So I use that as an example because there are always exemptions. And what they might do is come to a deal with Roman where they say, right, you have to sell, but we'll allow the transaction to go through. We'll allow the insurance policy to be paid to pay the debt back because that's beneficial for the football club. but after that transaction, no more. So the exemptions can be made. So yeah, it's not just that there's a ban, that's it, it's done. It never really works like that. And where there's money involved, and trust me, the banks, there's a transaction of a few billion quid. Do you know what the bank's making on that? The banks are going to go, yeah, we'll do it. Do you know what I mean? They just need to get permission from the FCA or their relative governing body. So yeah, I wouldn't say that it isn't. But yeah, that was a madness. I remember they shut the branch down. We were all locked in certain rooms. They were like, you can't go downstairs, you can't leave. We were like, what's going on? We thought we'd been robbed at first because we were just upstairs. And then it turned out about 5 months later, they told us, yeah, we counted the money that went to the pirates, and we were like, that's so cool. Like, I was young, I was like 20, I don't know how old I was in 2008. What was I, like 14 years ago? I was like 21, 22. I was like, this is amazing. Right, Adrian's here with us now. What are you saying, Aid?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Perfect, my friend. Who do you support, just so we know?
Yes, I'm a Chelsea fan. So yeah, I think I just want to like confirm some stuff and just like reiterate some stuff as well that everyone else was saying. When it comes to Chelsea, I think we also have to understand that Marina Granovskaya has really been running the show for the last 4 years, and Chelsea have sort of moved on to this sort of self-sustainable model in that time period. Now, if the new owners come in and try and change that infrastructure, it might be different, and we're going to hypotheticals, but I just want people in the chat. I know some Liverpool fan can't even spell Liverpool. We won't get to that, but he was sort of talking about that, just so people know. Chelsea have been a self-sustainable club for the last 4 years. Now, when it comes to this situation, I'm very 50-50 on it. I'm hoping, if we do get new owners, I'm hoping they have the best interest of the club at heart. But you never know. We've seen what has happened to Manchester United and Arsenal, for example. And I just hope that situation doesn't happen to us. And the big hope for me is that because Petr Cech and Marina Granovskaya are there, the best interests of the club will always remain. But you never know in these sort of situations. I hope the players are feeling okay as well, because I can imagine as a player, this is a crazy situation. We've got a game like at 7 today, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Very, very true indeed about that kind of impact that it has from a playing point of view. There was this comment that came in here. I missed the beginning. Do you agree with the action, Terry? Taking a private citizen's assets because of an alleged connection to Putin seems weird. Look, the idea of sanctions I agree with. Do I trust that there's proof and evidence and everything's all above board? I'd be a hypocrite to say I trust this government. So, like, either way, it's one of them things. Like, the idea of sanctions makes sense. If you delve into why financial sanctions exist, and I did them in the banking industry, it's very important. Very, very important indeed to have them in place. In terms of the intricacies of this situation, I don't know enough about it to say whether it's right or wrong. And that's not a cop-out answer. That's legitimately the truth, because I don't know what Roman has or hasn't done. I don't know him personally. I haven't seen any of the evidence, and nor is anybody, by the way. So to have an opinion whether it's right or wrong is almost ridiculous from what they're doing. In terms of impacting Chelsea, I would like to see Chelsea Football Club and all its sort of connected parties protected, because they don't deserve to be damaged over this. The fans don't, the local businesses don't, the league doesn't. Like, they just don't, because there's a knock-on effect there for lots of different people. So yeah, look, that's my answer on that. And if it sounds like I'm sitting on the fence, I apologize, but it's my honest stance on it. Terry, my missus was redeployed to London at the height of the pandemic. Both of us working for the NHS. Roman opened up his stadium hotel for them. And that's the point. Like, we know Roman has done some brilliant things as well. You know, I would like to understand, again, in answering that previous question from Just Looking, I want to understand what they deem to be the connection, because I need to understand that, because that's what's key here. There's leaked documents. I mean, what does that mean? That they've had dinner together? What? I need to understand. Like, I don't get it. Do you know what I mean? If, for instance, this isn't Roman. If there is a person who has pumped loads of money in the last few months to buy rockets and missiles, then I kind of understand it. But if it's just they know each other, they've been to, like, I don't know. I don't know the detail to give a straight answer, which is why I say I don't like to talk about things I don't know about. It's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, that's his whole topic, Terry. It's all over the place as well. Like, no one knows a straight answer. There's no straight answer to this whole topic, and that's why a lot of people are not scared, but like, they don't know what to say on this topic, because it's just everywhere. And you know, in 10 minutes, people are going to hear something different. Like, it's just changing non-stop. So I understand people how they don't have a specific thought and a specific kind of argument towards this Roman thing, because it's all over the place.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, my friend. I really, really do. There was a comment here that says, where's it gone? He goes, you're not self-sustainable. You owe 1.5 bill. Listen, the majority of that 1.5 billion debt was racked up before FFP. The one thing I will say right now, FFP is a godsend. Because without it, if FFP didn't exist, I would be worried. Because by now, you guys would be paying people £1 million a week to play for you, and you can never guarantee a new owner's going to do that. This is exactly what UEFA brought. I'm not saying, look, I very rarely praise UEFA or anybody, but right now I'll be looking at it again. Thank God that exists. There we go. My understanding was just.
Is it just all right if I just ask to
Yeah,
reply?
Yeah.
I think we also need to just make sure from now on we keep a sort of level of consistency as well when we come to these ideas with politics and football. Because although I do agree with the ideas of sanctions, I think you made a point there of like, oh, if there's a link between Roman or a specific person involved and sort of supplying arms to the Russian army, and then of course they should be sanctioned and punished. I want to see that consistently given for every single owner of the Premier League. Because we do know there are very strong links, particularly with Man City and Liverpool's owners, with specific arm dealings. Now, I'm not one to involve politics into that sort of debate, but if one sort of party is being punished because of that, we should be consistent.
Where do you draw this? I've always made this point. Go on, Daz.
I think as well, though, like I do agree, it would be ideal if politics and all this stuff wasn't involved in football, but this is where we need to not be too naive. The truth is, politics it intertwines with football. Football, yes, UFC is ideal, but football compared to UFC, the amount of money in football,
of course,
is well above UFC. And when you look at football, literally, let's say comparing leagues, Serie A back in the early 2090s, that used to be the pinnacle of football. Now you've seen it shift. And now Premier League is where all the top managers, all the coaches. Do you know what that sort of aligns with? That aligns with the money in football. Yeah. And money, it doesn't just come out of the air. It's politics and all of this helps dictate this. So when you're seeing this issue, I agree with what En just said. It would be nice if it was consistent, but the truth is this world is not consistent.
The world will never be consistent ever. It's like it's never going to happen. It never will. And it's interesting as well because there's also the element of the part that the banks and the insurance companies playing this. Reputational risk is important. So one of the last clients that I was dealing with before I left the private bank I was at, this young guy, I say about 35, 40, fairly wealthy, was moving to the UK, wanted to bank in the UK or have a UK bank, even though we're based in the Isle of Man. And his surname was Kalashnikov. And he was related to the family that invented the Kalashnikov. And the money he had in his bank accounts was basically inheritance money from all of that. The bank I work for took a stance to say we're not opening the bank account because we don't want to hold money that's from the proceeds of these said transactions, which caused a lot of controversy because other people that banked with us, they've been connected, and we're all sitting there like, why yes to some and not to others? And it was just one of them things. And there's always been there in every walk of life I've seen those hypocrisies, and you're not going to get rid of them just because we ask. But I do hear the frustration with them completely. I do. Sean here says, I don't get into politics with it. Most billionaires probably aren't good people. I'm against financial doping, though, is what Sean has got to say. Listen, everyone that's tuned in today, I appreciate it. Daz and Matt and Adrian and Fatur and Matty and Lammy and everyone who called in. Thank you to all my super chatters. Did I miss any super chats? Let me just check here. I didn't. No, I didn't. But thank you all very, very much for coming on and having your say. Smash the like button before you leave. Back at 3 p.m. for Straight Facts with Jess. And, of course, match reactions tonight for the chat. Well, I'll be covering Chelsea and Liverpool, but we'll be going with the biggest story. So if one of you gets knocked out tonight, that's the lead story. I'm just saying. I doubt either of you will, though. Are you going to the game for tour?
Yes, I will. Unfortunately, I'm Mr. Terry now, so I'm going to have to wait next one.
Just to sit on here, mate. Listen, I'll speak to you all again soon. Take care.